my channel. This is Sri Radha Debroy, your sociology educator. So we are back after a long time and this time with a lecture video, and our topic for today is the relationship of sociology and history. So we had already started a series on our channel regarding the interrelationship of sociology with different other social sciences, and I already have one video regarding the relationship of sociology and anthropology. So if you haven't watched that video, I'll provide the link in the description box. Make sure that you check it out. So today we will be dealing with the relationship of sociology and history, and before starting with the video, these are my basic academic details, and if you haven't subscribed to my channel already, please make sure that you subscribe to the channel and press the bell icon so that you are notified every time I upload a new video. Alright, so without wasting much time, let us now start with today's topic, that is the relationship of sociology and history. Now, before beginning with that, we need to clearly understand what is the definition of history or what history actually means. So, as you can see here, the definition is that history is the body of knowledge dealing with the events of man's past. So, we all have an understanding about what history is. So, it is about man's past. It is a body of knowledge, or it is a subject which deals with man's past. It is a story of the experience of mankind and the record of the human past. It is a systematic record of man's life from the past to the present. So, history is basically a discipline which deals with the past events, and it is a record of the events that has occurred in the past. Also, history is a systematic record of man's life from the past to the present. So, it is basically a record of the events of mankind sequentially in time. So, the records are not stored up in a jumbled up fashion, but rather they are arranged sequentially as they have occurred in the timeline. On the other hand, we as students of sociology already know what is sociology. So, still let us look into the definition of sociology. So, it is basically the scientific study of society. It is a systematic study of human social life, groups and institutions. It is a critical understanding of the social universe. So, we have already done a detailed discussion on what is sociology in one of our very first videos. So also I will link that in the description box. If you haven't watched it, please go and watch it. So while history is the study of man's past events, sociology is the study of human social lives, groups and social institutions, and it is a critical understanding of the social universe. So, while history as a discipline deals with the study of man's past, sociology as a discipline is a scientific study of society. It is a scientific and systematic study of the networks of social relations. So, one major basic difference between history and sociology is the fact that while history deals with the past of man, sociology, on the other hand, deals with the present of man. So, it deals with present societies and not with societies that have existed in the past. So, having discussed the definitions of the two subjects, we now move on to see some major differences between the two disciplines of history and sociology. So, first one we have is history is the study of the past events of mankind, while sociology is the study of present and contemporary. So, we all know this, that history is the study of the past of man, while sociology is concerned with the study of the present society, of whatever happens in the present and the contemporary world. Secondly, history deals with events which are correlated in time, whereas sociology deals with events occurring more or less in the same time. So, this means that history studies the past events in a sequential manner. This means that we study whatever has happened, the events in sequence of their time. So, for example, we do not study Cold War before World War, but we study World War One, then World War Two, and then Cold War. So there is a sequence of events through which we study history, and this sequence is more or less an orderly sequence through which we study history, and therefore these events are correlated in time. So one event follows the other event, while in sociology we study events which are occurring in the same time. So obviously when you see that we study the present society, So when we study the present society, we have to study whatever happens in the present in the same time. So, this does not mean that sociology studies events in a disorganized manner, no. But what is meant by this is that sociology studies the events in the present. So, there is a limited time sequence in which we study sociology. So, since we study the present societies, we study the present conditions of that society, the social conditions of that society. Thirdly, history is descriptive in nature while sociology is analytical. So there is a difference in the type of questions asked between the two subjects. So while history is descriptive, it deals with the questions of what. So it asks questions like what had happened. And sociology, on the other hand, deals with the how questions. So it deals with how that thing has happened. So, to speak in more generalized terms, history is basically descriptive. So, it is a description of events that has occurred. So, therefore, we associate what questions with the descriptive thing. That is, we ask questions about what had happened in a particular time. Whereas sociology is analytical, so it does not just ask what has happened, but it asks how the thing has happened. What are the social conditions that led to the thing happening? So, therefore, sociology is analytical and it deals with the how questions. Another major difference between the two disciplines is regarding their origin. So, while history is an age old discipline, sociology is a young social science. So, sociology as a discipline had originated much later than history. Alright, so moving on to the next point. Though both study human events, the approach of the sociologist is different from that of the historian. So, we are talking about the approach of the two subjects. So let us see what are the approaches adopted by the two disciplines. So while sociology studies human events from a sociological point of view with a focus on the network of social relationships, historian on the other hand studies society from the historical point of view. Their main focus is on the time order of events. Now, this might seem to be a very commonsensical point that sociology studies society from a sociological point of view while historian studies society from a historical point of view. But to think properly, you will see that both of these two disciplines study society and the human events. But a basic difference between the fact is that sociology studies it from the point of view of the network of social relationships. What is meant by network of social relationships? So, sociologist is interested in the present society and the relationship between the individuals in society. How do they interact? What are the institutions that make up the society? What are the rules, regulations, mores, folkways, and values? So, sociology studies from a societal point of view while historian studies the society from a historical point of view. So the historian is not that much interested in the network of social relationships but is more concerned with the time order, or as I had said earlier, the sequence in which the events occurred. So to say it more generally, the sociologist is interested in the networks between human beings as societal beings or social beings, whereas the focus of the historian is on the time order of human events. So, another point of difference is that sociology studies the regular, recurrent, and universal events, while history studies the unique, particular, and individual events. So, if you see properly, sociology basically studies the regularized patterns of social interaction, whereas history studies each and every phenomena in its uniqueness. So, say for example, history studies every war from its unique point of view. So, it studies in details every war which has been fought in the history of mankind. Whereas sociology does not individually study all of these wars, but it studies wars in general as a kind of social phenomena or maybe as a type of interaction between two groups in the form of conflict. So, now that we have discussed the differences between sociology and history, it is time that we now move on to the relationship between the two subjects. So, if you see the first point, it says that the sociology and history are uniquely interrelated. History supplies information to sociology. History has a record of various social events which are of importance to sociologists. So we all know by now that history is a record of the events that has happened in the past. Now what happens is that history basically supplies information to sociology as well as various other social science disciplines. Now history has a record of the various social events which are of importance to the sociologists. Say for example, history has a record of every society and the stages through which society has progressed. History also has a record of the various practices, the social institutions, the cultures, the values and customs which were followed during a particular period of time. Now, when we try to understand a particular society, the sociologist has to make use of these particular records of history. Secondly, the sociologist is concerned with the present society, but present society can be better understood with an understanding of the past. See, for example, the sociologist has to study a particular social institution called marriage. Now, to understand the marriage practices of a present day society, the sociologist also needs to understand how the marriage practices have evolved over time. And to understand this, the sociologist obviously needs the help of a historian. So, to understand a present society better, we always have to fall back upon history to understand the past of that society so that we get a holistic picture of the present. Sociology provides the knowledge of social background to historians. History is meaningless without socially significant events. Now, say for example, history is concerned with particular events in time. Now, for example, history is interested in a particular war or a battle. Now, what happens is that to understand the battle, the historian also needs to take into account the socially significant events, or the historian needs to take into account the social context of the war. For example, to understand a particular battle, the historian also needs to understand what were the social causes or what were the societal conditions that led to happening of that particular war. So, without an understanding of the social background or the social context of a particular event, the study of history is meaningless. So, keeping in mind all the points that we have discussed so far, we see that there are various differences between the two disciplines of history and sociology. Yet, in spite of the fact, we see that there are also many similarities, or rather, there are points of overlap between the two disciplines where one discipline cannot proceed without the help of the other. So, history is also becoming more sociological today in the sense that it is more and more trying to take into account the social context which led to the happening of a particular historical event. Also, in the field of history, the development of social history is trying to bring the two disciplines closer. So, social history basically deals with the human relations, patterns, and social institutions of a particular historical event or a historical period. Also, they adopt a more analytical approach in the sense that they do not just deal with descriptive facts, but they try to establish relations between events and try to investigate the causes behind some historical events. Also, historical sociology is getting recognized as a subfield of sociology. So, as G.E. Howard rightly points out, history is past sociology and sociology is present history. So, by now, I am sure you have a clear understanding of the interrelationship between sociology and history. I hope this video was helpful for you all. If yes, then please do not forget to like, share, and subscribe to my channel. And I'll see you in my next video. Till then, keep shining.